We got 22 people, so I'm gonna go ahead and let them in.
All right.
If that's okay with you.
Sure.
You ready? Takes a minute to populate.
There's Tom Tucker. Hi, Tom Tucker. I just like saying that.
Great. That's a great name.
I know. He calls me and I said, it's Tom Tucker.
Welcome, everybody. I'm still letting folks in. If you'd like to use the chat, you can tell us who you are and what church you're with in the chat function. We'll get started here in a few minutes. But we'll use the chat for questions, and then we'll address the questions at the end of the presentation. And I'll be watching that. So if you have any questions, we'll be looking at in the chat box. Hey, Randy.
Hello.
Hey, Gail. Mike, Dan. Fine, yeah. Y'all got it so fast, I didn't even see my chat box fill up before there was just a list of names there. It's great. Hey, Sandra.
Where's Sandra?
Gonna give just a few more minutes. There's a couple people still joining in, and then we'll get started. Hey, Rick. Hey, Ken.
Hey.
We are recording, and so I'm going to ask for everybody to mute your device just to make sure that the recording catches all the information. We will put this up on the website tomorrow so that you can go back and review it if there's something that you missed, or if there's somebody else in your congregation that you would like to share it with and make sure that they got the information. We know that sometimes that's what people are better able to do, is to watch the recording. So we've got that recording available, and it will be on the mcsp.org website. So if you're get down the road and you want to look at it again, that's where it will be. You can find it. And if you have trouble finding it, please just let us know in the provincial office and we can make sure you have the correct link for it. Looking like we're pretty close to getting everybody on. So I think we'll go ahead. If you haven't had a chance to put your name and where you're coming in from, you can do that in the chat. And again, we'll be taking questions in the chat box. And so if, as the presentation is going on, you've got questions, please feel free to drop them there. There will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation for you to unmute and ask your question that way if you'd like. But we'll go through the questions in the chat box first, and then we'll take questions kind of from the floor as it was, or as it is. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Neil, and get started.
So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us as we do this 2026 budget presentation. I want to thank everybody, and I'm very grateful on behalf of the provincial elders for your support of the provincial share. Despite all the stuff we've been through, 2022, 2023, 2024, and now 2025, there's been a very solid, strong response. And we can't run the province without your support. And I'm just so grateful for how generous and faithful everyone has been towards that. Want to thank you for partnering with our Provincial Financial Office. That staff has worked very hard to set new systems for accounting to make it easier to report to you, to keep things very current and in real time. I know change isn't easy, but it's necessary for the best and efficient function. So thanks for working with us towards those changes. The budget you're going to see tonight, the PEC approval is pending. The budget's just been put together. PEC meets at the end of the week, and so they'll get a chance to officially approve it. We don't anticipate any major changes to the numbers you're seeing tonight, but I wanted to be transparent about that. The other thing we're happy to talk about tonight, and Brene will explain this a little bit more in a moment, is the William M. Milstead Trust. So William Milstead was part of the Provincial Financial Board some years ago. And as part of his legacy, he remembered us in his will. And the PEC invested that gift in it. Now, when we draw we'll draw 4 or 5% each year. And the way it's set is it's applied to the overall provincial share, and it reduces it by the draw of that year. So this year, we take $98,000 off the top and spread that out across all of our congregations proportionally based on what your provincial share is. So it actually lets everybody experience that reduction. And again, I'm very grateful to the Milstead Trust and for William Milstead, who thought ahead and put this together many years ago, and we're now benefiting from that gift. Want to remind you of the sort of the principal key value that the PEC operates from, and our provincial staff is trust. All of our church professionals were called together to a forum back in early 23, and trust can be an acronym. It represents transparency. I want to say that PFO is working hard to provide a better system of transparency. The R reminds us of relationships, and if without cooperation and working together relationally, budgets don't work, our ministries don't work, and ours is working well because of those great relationships you're providing. And I want to thank you for that. The U represents understanding that's mutual. It's not one way, but mutual. And so I say on behalf of the PFO, they want to know what you need. And there's been a lot of folks that's helped them. The more we know what people need, the better we all function. So thank you for that, and continue to do that. The S is shared vision. We're all connected. Vision depends on each one of us and each congregation doing its fair share to support the provincial share. And because we have a great ministry and we're able to support it. And finally, the T at the end of the word trust represents taking risks together. So developing a transformational system or trying to transform our system isn't easy work. Transformation includes a lot of change, and none of us are comfortable with change. Let's be honest about that. But taking risks together towards the goal is the key. So we continue to work on that on your behalf to make all this work better. I think a great example of what trust means when we put those things together is the gift from William Milstead, and what has now enabled us to set up that Milstead Fund. And this year you'll benefit from that because of that gift. So William Milstead thought so much of the province and our ministry from serving on the financial board in the past that he literally put in a trust, a gift that now benefits us in perpetuity. Think about that. Whenever we support the provincial share, it's not only to the benefit of our congregations and the Southern Province, but ministry far beyond our borders. I do want to say you're going to hear tonight about another change that's coming. I know last year it felt very disruptive at the first of the year when we changed to a payroll vendor. And unfortunately, as all vendors can raise their prices, that price is going to go up so severely, we're having to change again. So I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but I want you to know we learned a lot of lessons at the early part of this year on how to do this better. And so we're transitioning with a vendor that's going to help us do this in a far more functional, friendly way, and connects customer service to each of our employees where they need it to set up accounts and so forth. You'll hear something about that from Renee. So let us join together in living out trust by supporting the 2026 provincial budget. I want to thank you for being so faithfully and doing so with well over 90% of our congregations staying current with their provincial share and doing that through 3 consecutive years, that's extraordinary. Let's do it again in 2026. So I'll turn it over to Renee.
Thank you, Neil. Hi, everybody. Can you all, I want to see if I've got everything.
We can see you and your presentation.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. It's good to be with you tonight. I wanted to jump right in and share with you. Well, let's see if this can work. Here we go. First of all, I want to thank everybody. This is, wow, I always get emotional when I start these presentations, so just bear with me, okay? I just want to thank everyone for your understanding and your grace over this past year. It's been a long one. And you guys have taught me so much this year, and I've learned just a ton of things. And doing this budget, I learned even more. Every time I dive into something, I learn more and more, and I see how things can get better and better. So I just want to thank you for that. Moving on. A couple of things that came out this year that was interesting that I thought you'd want to know is that 23 out of the 54 churches that we have 56 churches, and I have 54 here that I have revenues for. So 23 out of the 54 churches increased their revenue in 2024. 13 of those saw an increase greater than 10%. And 6 of those saw an increase over 45%. I thought that was pretty incredible when I saw the numbers. I said, wow. Now, 11 of those churches out of it saw a decrease in revenue that was greater than 10%. But overall, there was an increase in operating revenue across the province, and the share for this year was greater in combination than over 2023. So what is the provincial share? It's based on the 2024 annual operating revenue, which is on your line 10 from your audits. This year, the estimated shortfall is 6.5%, and that's going to equate to $125,350. Then there is pre-relief, which I'll explain in a minute, for 13 churches this year, and that equals to $75,000. So that leaves a balance of the shortfall for churches who might find themselves needing some extra help. We have an excess shortfall of $50,000 remainder for the year. So how is it calculated? The share is calculated based on those receipts, and it's done in a tier type system. So I know you all have seen this before, and I know you've calculated some of it before, but I just wanted to kind of show you how this kind of compares out. And basically it just goes through this formula, and then the more the church makes, the more that they then have a share for. And this is how it breaks out when you're looking at anything over, as it goes up from, it starts at 50,000 and starts at 10%. So your baseline is 5,000 for the year if it's up to 50,000. And it climbs on up in consequential percentages. So the question then becomes, what is pre-relief? What do these 13 churches receive? Well, the reason that the pre-relief is there is for any church, we don't want to extend them so far based on their share from last year to this year. So for example, if a church had 100% increase in revenue, their share would only increase by 25%. So it's based on, because that would tax them to be extra more. You don't want to learn all this extra money and do such a great job and then have to send it all to the province. you're still working on getting your church in order and doing the things that you need to do for your church. So it is capped at 25, at a max of 25% from 1 year to the next. And that also means for a church that has had relief the past year and they do better, it's not going to increase more than that because they're still getting their footing. So what that does is to promote fairness among the congregations. It provides the budget stability, and then it allows that gradual adjustment over time. So this year, pre-relief was granted for 13 churches, and 5 of those churches had a greater than 25% increase in their annual operating revenue, which is what I was just talking about. But 6 of those churches had received relief in 2025 as well. And this is just something I came across. As I work with the province, I get relatively emotional sometimes about what you do. And I find it to be really important to keep that in mind. This is basically talking about the Milstead gift that he set up. I was impressed when I went back to read his will from his estate. And he made that will in 2014. And it then transpired, he passed in 2023. And the bulk of his estate was left to the province to support the financial side of all of the churches being able to share in that gift. So basically, the Milstead Fund's earnings, okay, are distributed annually according to the provincial share formula, which is we'll look at in a minute. But it's not relief, it's a proportional blessing. Every congregation benefits based on its share ratio. So every share ratio is based on the amount that they bring in and report to the total amount that we receive. So for 2026, we've got about 98,000 that will be distributed from the Milstead Fund's earnings. And each congregation's provincial share is reduced by approximately, it's not the share, it's their responsibility. So each congregation's provincial share responsibility is reduced by 5%, which then provides more stability and less of a burden to you. And then combined with the relief and the Milstead Fund, it helps to ensure the equity and sustainability across the province. So here's the calculated provincial share for 2026. The total share that came in over all the churches was 1,928,000. The shortfall that we just talked about was 125 based on it should be 6.5%. 2026, then the budgeted share dollars end up to be 1,803,000. But because of the Milstead Fund, which I'm calling a subsidy because it's able to subsidize the provincial share, is 98,000, then the share dollars that are being required and requested from the churches is only 1,704,000. And a thing to remember that the provincial share isn't a bill. I know you get invoices every month, but it's really a bridge that you build together. And this is the breakout of how the share gets distributed. All the way down, and I've got all these numbers, and you will receive this in your budget packages when they go out, and they will be out soon. But this will break out the percentages of what your share breaks out to. But these are the numbers that are following down for each particular agency, each department from the PEC. This is the amount of share that goes to that department or that agency. Trying to think what's new this year, if there's anything new. It's relatively very, very similar to last year. I will call out that, well, it's basically the same. It's very, very similar all the way down. Okay. I guess the only difference this year is between HR and the PFO. The HR is there this year because we have so much happening with payroll and that type of thing. So there's a portion that goes toward that this year. Then we look at the required and requested items. So the required items, and that's listed wrong. It should say required items are the youth ministry, and this is the same as last year and the same as the year before, but the youth ministry, the technology team, APSI, and racial reconciliation. So all of that ends up being the 66,030, and that is added to the share. So you have a percentage of that that will be added to it. And then we have the requested items, which is the emerging ministry and the National World Council of Churches. Now, the emerging ministry and special ministries are tied into the PEC budget. And the reason that those are requested is that the fund, the emerging ministry fund, is quickly depleting itself without being increased without additional support. So that is why I would encourage all of you to think about adding an additional amount, even though it's not required, an additional amount to add to that emerging ministry, because those ministries are very important. Now it's time to look at the overall budget for the province. So in this budget, we like to think of it as transparency, stewardship, and faithfulness. So budgets aren't just numbers. They're commitments of faith. So in the budget, we have the line items for the income, and it goes down from this Laurel Ridge's budget, and that's the money that comes in for Laurel Ridge to Laurel Ridge. And then there's the investment income, there's the contributions, gifts, and grants, the financial office and HR charges when that's applicable to whoever's out there that charges for what we do. The Salem congregation matches your provincial share to the archives, and that's what that part is. Then we have the pension charges that come in for the pastors from the congregations. Then you have guest services and miscellaneous. And then, of course, we have the Millstead Fund. And then these are the total budgets for each agency as they come through. I'm trying to think what I need to tell you about this. It's very, like I said, it's very similar to last year. Some of them increased, some of them decreased this year, but overall it's focused. I know that the PEC budget increased this year because we've included an amount to support the new churches and church growth in Texas. So that has been included there. And then these are the interprovincial agencies and causes that go out throughout throughout the world, basically. And this is what is for the budgeted for them. I can see that some of these numbers didn't get transposed right, so I can give you a clear numbers after this, but I can see that something didn't get quite right, so my apologies. However, the revenues do total out to the budget expenditures. Okay, and I did want to point out that we do have 403B contributions this year. Well, not just this year, in all years, but one of the things to let everyone know is that every employee who works more than 10 hours is eligible to put into a 403B contribution. The churches can contribute and match or do whatever with their employees as well. The caveat to that is that they cannot separate out who they choose to do that for. If you do it for one employee, you have to do it for all employees. If the caveat to that is, or the criteria is that those employees have to be full-time or work 10 hours or whatever, then everyone who does that then becomes eligible. So it's not you can't separate them out. However, it does save the church federal tax savings for both the church and the employers as well. So just something to think about. And so Neil was telling you about a payroll system change, and yep, it's coming. So in about 2 months ago, I guess now, we got a call mid-year that TriNet, who had merged with Zenefits, was going to increase the cost. And they were going to go from $11 a person to $55 a person per month, which ended up being a 400% raise. But they were not going to increase any services or do anything different. So that would have meant about $23,000 just in fees to pay for the payroll provider. So that was not acceptable, and we had to take that opportunity to improve what we're doing now instead of staying where we were. We did a lot of review. We had the PSSB review. We reviewed the several different systems, and we looked for one that matched what you all told us last year about what you really wanted. So the biggest thing that I heard was it needed to be easy to use, and it would be nice if it would include everything. For example, when you go to do your enrollment on your insurances and you want to look up your insurances, you'd like to do it in one system instead of more than one, several. So that's what this system does, and that's why we picked it. And they worked with us to keep the cost down, so it's staying at $11 per person, which is amazing at this point. So that way we can avoid that escalation and still get much, much more bang for our buck as we move forward. We'll also be able to keep all of our drug testing results and our background check results all within one system. So then other agencies and groups can then share that information and look that up to see where people are. So we're not duplicating and spending unnecessary funds to have those tests run again. For example, if you go to Laurel Ridge and you need to do that, and the concept is we're going to be doing those things maybe every 3 years or so. There's still some talk about that as to how often do you run these things, because they're not static, so to speak. So what began as a surprise cost increase became a an opportunity, and it became a strategic upgrade to what we're going to be doing. And it turned a challenge into a real positive transformation to what we're going to be focused on for all of the employees here. And I think I think you're really going to like it. At least I'm hoping so. All right. Well, here's some reminders. I do want you to be on the lookout for updates, because as it's coming, we have a short window to once again change the system. We'll be using this system for the December payroll so that we can have the W-2s come from one system. And they have agreed to do all of our tax audits to make sure that everything is in place and that we have everything we need for end of year reporting. So we also could be doing some policy adjustments, some procedural improvements, and we could be asking questions about how you do things. A lot of these payroll systems require very specific ways of doing things. For example, they either require the person that you're paying to either be hourly or salaried, and there's different caveats to all of that. So I hope you'll keep that in mind as we ask you these questions. We're not doing it to annoy you or make anything difficult. We're just trying to keep in compliance with everything that we need to keep in compliance with. So hopefully everything will be then transformed into one system. And I think that's going to be way better for everyone. There's also going to be upcoming trainings. We're going to be doing our health insurance enrollments through this system this year. And we want to do that at the end of November, beginning of December. So that will be here, but everyone needs to go through training to be able to get onto the system and be able to navigate the way you need to navigate it. And we'll start with managers, and then we'll have trainings for employees, and all of that will be available to you as we move forward. Okay, well, this is pretty much what we just talked about. The background checks and the drug testing will increase a little bit next year, or the end of the year, because of the new system. So I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be terribly horrific, but it is necessary to be able to keep all of this in one place. Now, we talked about the health insurance open enrollment, and it says the first week of December. It could be as the end of November, but I have it here for December. But I do have some good news for you. I heard from our broker today, and they came back with the insurance quotes. And initially came through from Blue Cross Blue Shield that originally we budgeted this year for 10%. And it came back from Blue Cross Blue Shield at 7.9% increase. And then Jonathan, our broker, went back to them and said, yeah, but they pay a lot in premium. Can you do any better? And so this year it will only be a 4% increase. So I thought that was pretty incredible news, and I wanted to share that with you tonight. I'm also asking, I don't know if I can pull this off for you or not, but I'm asking for them to move our dental and our vision into Blue Cross Blue Shield too, so that it's all one. Because to me, it's confusing to have dental insurance and vision insurance all different. So hopefully we can do that if it's cost effective. I will keep you updated about that if that is a move that we can make. But I am committing not to change our health insurance this year. So that's good news. Oh, well, we just talked about all of that. Okay. Okay, I just want to do some reminders for everybody. So the budgets are due December the 15th. I know several of you have contacted me about the budget packages coming out and all of the details that you need to do your budgets. I'm hoping to have the budget packages emailed out by the end of the week. That is a goal that I have. I'm pretty sure I can do that. But we'll just roll with that. Now, I also want to tell you that I've listened to many of you, and I hear that April 15th is somewhat of a hardship for some churches based on who does your audits, who works in your audits, that type of thing, because it's tax time. So I've decided to move that and make the audits to May 15th to make it easier for you and cause less stress. So I hope that's a good thing. I also want to let you know that at the end of the year, we have salary change forms, we have bonus forms, we have all those types of things. And those are due by December the 9th, especially because we're changing our payroll system. It's going to be important to get those to us on time, okay? It is also important, I do want to bring up that the boards need to plan on approving any clergy housing allowances by December the 31st. And they need to be in the minutes for that. That is an IRS rule. It's not my rule. And it could, if it doesn't happen, it could affect the pastor. So I ask you to please start planning for that now. If there's going to be any kind of clergy housing allowance change, that it needs to be approved in those minutes before the 31st. Well, it just duplicates itself. Just a caveat, and this is for certain, there's churches out there and preschools that we sometimes aren't getting the drug tests or the background checks done before starting work. And it is important to get those things done prior to starting work, because I have had several things come back, drug tests, etc., that were positive. So those need to be handled before somebody starts work. I also want to let you know that we have all of our forms now are fillable forms that you can print online, and that you don't want to print them out. You can type in them and save them and send them to us typed out. Because as we move forward with the drug authorizations and the background check authorizations, we need to be able to read them clearly and cleanly. So we're trying to put those in a way that you can send them to us. It makes it easy for you, and it makes us easy for us to read and to document. So those are all, we're trying to update all of our new forms, and they're on the website. If you need any help with that, please let us know, but it would be great if we didn't print out those forms and handwrite them, because sometimes that can cause a problem. I also want to encourage the churches and the preschools to consider setting up the ACH draws. We have about, I want to say about 20 churches that are signed up to have their insurance and their provincial share come out on an automatic draw every month. It's always the same, and it's always done on the 15th of the month. So, and it helps us tremendously to be able to do it that way. It cuts down on a huge amount of work that we have to do when we have to process checks. Just want to put that out there and ask for you to consider that. It's easier to change. And also, we've had a fair amount of things get lost in the mail. I've had people say, well, I lost it. No, I didn't lose it. It didn't get here. So just something to think about. There's, I've actually had several things come through where checks that I mailed out got changed, and fraud was, I mean, they changed the check and they tried to cash it. So I've had some of those instances so far. Just want to make you aware of that it is safer to do ACHs and ACH draws. So want to put that there to you. Also, the payroll payroll draws are incredibly helpful for us because we have to pay right away. They draw the money from our account, and in a given month, we have to reverse wire out at least $800,000 for the whole province and everybody's payroll. And when we have to wait for it to come back, it would be helpful if everyone treated the payroll exactly like we're treated in payroll. So I would highly, highly request and ask that you consider an ACH draw for your payroll, because that way it is a much shorter time, and then we don't have to trade it. This is just, if you do come across an issue where you need some help and you have challenges happening, just give me a call. I'll be happy to help in any way I can. And if I can't help you, I'll find someone who can. Okay, I'm ready for questions.
All right, well, we'll start with the questions in the chat first. Megan, I will double check that, but I believe that that's a Synod question. She asked about how changing provincial share for agencies. Through PSSB, Neil said, okay. The slideshow will be made available on the website. We'll probably send out an email as well with a link to it. Joyce had a question about grant funding, which I think was for MMFA. But she also had a question here. What will happen with our property insurance in 2026?
The property insurance invoices have already gone out. What church are you from?
Rolling Hills.
Rolling Hills
Oh.
Moravian Church.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
That is all being rolled into one, so I'll have to look at that on a specific basis, because there were some Florida churches that, because the entire province is now going to Guide 1, and I'm still trying to sort out, because they were supposed to move all that over and I was supposed to be able to see it. So I will get with you later if that's all right.
Yes, that's fine. You'll probably be speaking with Sister Cecilia, but I was just curious about it,
Okay.
Because we haven't had any claims, as far as I'm aware, at least through 2025. I think we did have some, but I know sometimes even when there's no claims, insurance still goes up, right? So,
Yes.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay, absolutely.
Then we had a question, what's the difference between a 401k and a 403b?
A 403b is for nonprofits and churches, and a 401k is for the private sector.
Who will receive a budget package if they don't have a pastor currently? Who gets those budget packages?
Well, I believe it would be whoever the treasurer or whoever's handling the treasury. But if there's someone there that you need it to come to, send us an email and I'll make sure that it gets to you.
Okay.
That's something we need to know. Who do we send it to? So if you're out there and you want the package to come to you, please write me.
Do they receive an invoice if they set up an ACH draw?
Yes. Yes, I send out the invoice. We send out the invoices for everything, and there's invoices for property insurance, for workers' comp insurance, for the provincial share, and for payroll. And generally what happens is the invoices go out on the 1st for provincial share, insurances, and benefits. And then, and those are paid, generally drawn on the 15th. And then the payroll is done around the 20, we generally bill around the 25th, just as we're finishing up payroll. And then we draw it out. We try to draw it between the 25th, 6th to the 28th when it's paid.
And then somebody asked, how did they file for the William Milstead Fund grant? And I think Neil answered the question, but it's just automatically applied to the share calculation, and it'll be in the budget packet specific to each congregation?
Right, it is a fund that the province draws from on a percentage basis and then gets applied to the share. It's not a it's not a grant that is applied for.
What, if any, is the impact on the provincial budget from the recent loss of clergy? That might be a question for you, Neil.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what's implied in the question.
Would you like to speak to your question, please?
Yeah, we were just thinking that this is Brenda with MISBA, and I was talking with David, and we just wondered, it seems like I think we have 15 churches that do not have full-time ministers. So as ministers leave or retire or whatever, does that impact the provincial budget at all?
Yeah, just thinking off the top of my head, it does not. And what we do in the provincial budget is we spread across the province, each congregation donation into the pension fund. It's not based on having a pastor, it's based on everybody doing their fair share into it. And then we draw out of that pension to help those who are retired. Having a pastor or not having a pastor doesn't play a role in that. That's a provincial share formula.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. The other part to say, we have found some new some funding sources that have existed. We just weren't aware quite how they were working until recently with the help of the Some Congregation. So we're working on a way to actually fund our seminary folks and people taking courses en route. There may not be an MDiv student, but they're taking courses in the potential of being a ordained pastor or a trained lay pastor. And that fund, if this works right, it'll pay for it without that coming out of the budget right now. And if that works, then that'll actually what we would have put into that stuff will actually be able to reduce the budget quite a bit. So we're just finding more clever ways to use things like the Milstead Fund to make all this work well without shortchanging ourselves, and to also be sure everybody has what they need.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The next question is, will salary change forms be fillable online?
Yes.
Okay. Those congregations which showed increases above what is required, sorry, it's covering me up. What is attributed to the numerical entry? Was sorry. Above what is required, was it attributed to numerical increase in those congregations?
I don't know that answer.
Winston, we want to ask your question again, maybe out loud, and she can answer that question for you.
Yeah, I was just curious. I noticed there were some significant increases above in some places. So I just wondered aloud if it was attributable to numerical increase in those congregations, or that they just been blessed and so they share the blessing.
I don't know the answer to that because I haven't looked into what caused it yet, but it's a good question and it's one that we could explore.
DB asked, with the announcement of the building of 5 homes by the MCSP, where are the funds coming from? Oh, and Neil responded to that, but I don't know if you want to speak to that, Neil.
Yeah, so there's a partnership of gosh, it's about 10 different entities. Russ May has been a great leader on our behalf of organizing that, and they're working with the city of Winston-Salem. So what they figured out how to do is the homeowner pays for that house when they buy it, just like anybody else would. There's not Moravian money building the houses. It's more like we're standing behind it. We're the named entity that helps this coalition do what they do. The financial partner in it has been Piedmont Federal Bank, and they are also the partner that functions behind the scenes for Habitat for Humanity and Forsyth County. It's pretty much the same model. So because of how it works, they're able to build a high quality home at a much reduced price. The homeowner's paying somewhere between 130 and 150. We like it if it's closer to 130, but the house is actually worth north of $300,000. So immediately they've got, almost $150,000 of equity the day they move in. And then there's a process behind the scenes to help them be the best possible homeowners, to stay, current. And this becomes a bigger thing about making better neighborhoods and all kinds of stuff. But we're not putting any Southern Province money into it. We're part of a partner that helps the whole engine of things work for that project.
Have there been any changes in the workers' comp carrier or policy in the past year?
Well, the rates just came out and they went up slightly for some and they came down for some, but it was basically remained the same, but the policy's the same.
Okay. Margaret wants to know where the fillable forms can be found.
They should be found online on the website.
So mcsp.org, and then if you go to look at human resources, there should be a whole list of links, and those forms should be fillable there. If you find one that is not, please just let us know and we'll make sure to fix that. Jan asked, do we keep the same cost as the previous pastor on the 2026 budget? I would anticipate, what do you think, Renee? I would just keep it there.
I didn't hear the question.
He wants to know, do you keep the same cost as previous pastor if you don't currently have a pastor in the budget?
Oh yeah, I would. I mean, unless you want to increase what you think is coming in so you can draw it to you.
And Jan, you and I can talk about that more directly. Yeah, yes, that's what you do. And I think you'll be good at that number.
And then Joyce asked about the Milstead Trust. Is it interest-bearing account, and what kind?
It's in two different accounts. One's a stable account with yeah, of course, yes, it is interest-bearing. One is it's split up, and part of it is in a stable account, and part of it's in a growth fund. So,
but both of which are at MMFA.
Are there any other questions that anybody has? I think we got through. If I missed a question, there was one question that I thought was in here, but I don't see it now. So did we catch everybody's questions? Is there anything else that anybody would like to ask?
Will the group insurance rates be listed in the communication coming to us that includes all budget?
No, it will if I get it in the next day or so, but I've got to send the budget packets out. But basically it's a 4% increase, but I don't have the actual dollar, specific dollar yet. So I don't know. I'm waiting to hear from the broker to see what they can do. And if not, I can send out an email to let everyone know. You guys are on that budget this year.
Thank you. Also on the property, you utilize the amount that we've been invoiced the most recent month. I think in September it changed, so that's good through next July.
Yes.
For Guide 1.
Yes.
And then anybody's guess on from there to the end of the calendar year?
Yes.
Will budget packages be emailed or sent via post?
They will be emailed.
Okay.
And when you send those budget packages back along or the audit packages back, I do need them back in the same format that I send them to you, please.
And so if anybody needs any help doing that, just let our offices know, and we're glad to help make that happen. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for joining us. We will have this presentation and the video will be posted as soon as we can tomorrow on mcsp.org. It will also be included in the Essentials newsletter. If you don't receive the Essentials newsletter, you can sign up to get it. It's a weekly newsletter from the province where we try to share announcements and information about things that are going on and about opportunities. We'd love to have your contact information attached there. Many of you, I think, probably are a part of that. But if not, we welcome you to subscribe or to encourage other people in your congregation to subscribe so we can tell you more about what is happening. We'll also be working on a narrative budget kind of brochure, which cuts this down into a really kind of bite-sized story about, so you can talk to your congregation about here are the things that our provincial share contributes to. So we'll be working on that to get that out soon as well.
And will the questions and answers be also part of the presentation?
These questions and answers?
Yes, that we've, texted on Zoom.
I think they can be. Yes.
Rebecca, this is Jan. Do you know when this information will be available that we can talk, certainly for me, a little bit more intelligently with the congregation?
Yeah, well, Renee said the budget packet will go out by the end of the week is her hope. And so that should be when you'll have that information.
Okay, so we'll have the part that you were talking about, that you were working with someone.
The narrative budget?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna work to try and get that out like by the end of the week as well.
Okay, that'd be great in time for church council.
Okay,
Thanks.
We'll do that. Thank you so much, Renee. Do you want to have the last word?
The last word. I just want to thank everybody. If you need anything, I am here. I'm happy to help. And I appreciate all of you. Blessings to you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you,
You all
Renee.
as well.
Bye. Have a good day.
Hey,
Bye.
Jerry.
Bye.
I see Jerry.
Have a good night.